Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me, and thanks for joining the conference call. And thank you, Saratoga, for getting this set up. We'll give everyone a few moments to get started. And just if you do have questions, message everyone in the chat so that we're aware of the questions that are already out there. And I'm Kevin, a pale comparison to the great Ian.
Sure.
But I'll try to moderate as best I can.
Beautiful. Kevin, this is Sam Hales. Can you hear me?
Can hear you very well. Excellent. How about me?
Awesome.
Not too much echo?
Yeah. No. I think we're good. We initially, we couldn't hear you initially, but I think it was on our end. So thank you so much for kind of kicking it off here. And I think at this point, we'll turn it over to Josh. And Josh is going to kind of introduce the Saratoga team.
Yep. Yeah, thank you all for joining the call today. Welcome to the Fund 4 Q3 Investor Update. We're going to do a brief introduction of all of our management team that's on the call today. And then any questions that you do have, please type them into the chat throughout the call. And at the end of the call, we'll be happy to answer each and every one of them. We'll start with Sam Hale. He's our CEO, which you already heard Sam speak a moment ago. Sam is on the call today. He is in Auburn, California. Sam, did you want to do an introduction so that each of you speak for a moment?
Josh, I think if you just introduce everybody, and then maybe we could give Steve just a few moments since he's new to the team.
Okay, and then next we have Becky Smallwood. She is our CFO. She's also there in the Auburn office with Sam today. We also have a new addition to our team, Steve Docker. He is our new COO. And Steve, if you'd like to talk for a minute, feel free to.
We unmuted? Yeah, thank you, Josh. Yeah, My name's Steve Thacker. I've been in the industry since 2017, met Sam through a mutual friend, and we connected quickly, not just operationally, but ethically, and sort of the why behind the business model that he has. And just been about 6 weeks here, 6 or 7 weeks that I've been with the company, but I'll be moving my family to Tennessee to be closer to a lot of our communities, and we'll have an office opened up out there as well. And so very excited to be a part of the team and get to know you all better in the coming months. So yeah, thank you, Josh.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Next, the final member of our management team in the Auburn office today is Fletcher Alexander. He's our project manager. And then out in the field, we have Luke Hales, our CTO. He is in the Nashville area. And then finally, myself, Josh Delcor. I'm the senior regional manager, and I am in Central Illinois. We can go ahead and start the actual presentation now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Yeah. So everybody should have received an email recently with our written report. So if you've reviewed that report, some of this information is probably going to be a repeat information. But let's go ahead and go through it a little bit. So for the first chart here is showing our Q2 revenue, Q3 revenue, and then all of that relative to our original projected revenue for the first year. You can see that generally we've exceeded for Q3 our revenue targets, or at least our underwritten revenue amounts. The lone exception to that is in Silver City, or is our Silver City community. That's in Las Vegas, Nevada, and basically the story there is we are doing a redevelopment of that community. We're going to go from about 53 spaces to around 125 to 130, and so we're not moving anybody in. So as we move people out, we're not, at this point, because of the redevelopment, we're not moving anybody in. So that's why we see a drop there. Otherwise, you know, some of those that I'd say we're a little ahead of schedule. Los Robles and San Gabriel on the second line, those are in Rockdale, Texas. We've really been able to move pretty quickly with kind of our improvements there, and we've got our first shipment of homes coming in very soon. We'll talk about that as we get to some of these particular projects. We're you know, we didn't underwrite a lot of the home income that we're receiving there, and so positive things happening there, and you know, overall our income is looking good. So you just press the down arrow. Okay. Sorry, give us just a second here. Okay, so here are our Q3 income, net income results. Again, generally doing quite well. We, you know, in some cases, up quite a bit over our initial projections. We are, and really we're at the point where a lot of this is kind of we've set our baseline of operation, and we're going to start seeing these numbers move up dramatically as we start moving in new homes to the communities. That's starting to happen now. We've brought some homes into our community in South Rogers, which is in Indiana, and we've got orders out. Actually, we've moved about 15 homes into Fairview and Westwood in North Carolina. We're getting those homes filled up. So we're on a nice trajectory for increasing our income here across our different communities. So at this point, we're going to turn it over to Luke and Fletcher, who are managing our capital projects, and we're going to go through kind of community by community, the updates for Q3 and what's occurred in each community.
All right, thanks, Sam. So I think on the next slide, we'll jump right in with Los Robles. In Rockdale, Texas, there's been quite a lot going on at this property over the last few months, really this past 6 months or so. One of the projects we want to highlight here is a community-wide solar street lighting project. So there were previously essentially no street lights in this community. There were a couple in one corner behind a couple homes, but no real light on the streets themselves. And we did some assessment. We have developed a solar street light solution sort of in-house that we've installed at a couple other properties. It's been working really well for us. And so we identified 29 install locations throughout the community and have been working with the maintenance team there to install 29 of these solar lights. So there's no need to run any electrical to them. They automatically come on at dusk and off at dawn, and have a motion sensing function. So they're on about 30% brightness generally, and then come up to full brightness when that's triggered. I think I'll hand it over to Luke to touch on the other projects highlighted here.
Yeah, thank you, Fletcher. Luke Hales here. And yeah, again, Fletcher and I work closely on our big capital projects across our different funds and communities. Yeah, Los Robles is keeping us busy. A couple of the other big projects going on. The photo in the top left is a picture of the masticating work that happened in the section in the, I guess it would be the northeast corner of the community. We are developing that out. It'll end up being about 101 additional lots to that community. So a big development there. So we finished the masticating, and we recently finished a survey, and now getting into just starting the engineering phase. And things are moving along well with that. And there's been a bit of an issue with the coronavirus causing a delay in getting the licensing we need in order to purchase and sell homes. So we did kind of a one-off purchase through Legacy. That's a picture of one of the Legacy homes right there, actually for a different community. Those homes will be arriving mid-January. And then they actually just recently reopened the testing that's required to obtain licensing through an online testing program. So we'll now be able to get that license and put in a larger order of homes through Clayton. But this first round of homes will be a good opportunity to really test the market and see kind of what types of homes people are more interested in. The lower left photo there is just kind of some of the trash that we inherited with purchasing this community. It's actually a sizable, people were using it as a dumping ground. So we've been cleaning that up and getting the community looking a lot better than what it was when we purchased it. So a lot of improvements there. And let's see, I think another thing to mention is we have a playground that'll be coming as well. We'll be putting in a new community center. We looked at renovating the old office, but it's an old mobile home attached to a warehouse, and it would have been awkward to try and refab that. So we decided to go ahead and build a new stick-built community center that'll include the office, and we'll have barbecue pits and picnic tables, and the playground will be in that area as well as a soccer field. So probably next quarter we'll have more updates on the developments of the green space as well.
Luke, this is Sam. You know, one other thing that we should probably mention here is just kind of the development plan on the property. Maybe you could give a quick update on that.
You're saying the phase 2?
Right, phase 2.
Yeah, phase 2. Yeah, like I mentioned, the engineering is we're negotiating the terms on the engineering contract right now, but the actual engineering should start here within a couple weeks, and that'll take approximately 3 months, and then we can break ground and really move forward with laying everything out and putting in utilities and all of that. And we've actually have expanded the scope of that engineering. It's with a company called Costello. They will likely also be doing a lot of the construction management for that. And we've expanded their scope to include the community center as well. So they're doing the kind of the architecture and design of that as well.
We did have one kind of real-time chat that came in asking how many new pads or homes there will be in phase 2. I know our original plan was 101. Do we have any update on that at this point?
Well, we haven't done the engineering yet, so that number still sits at 101. It could go a little bit up or down from that, but I think it'll be pretty close to 100. Any other questions on Rockdale or Los Robles?
All right. Well, the next community we've got to highlight here is South Rogers in Bloomington, Indiana. And a few bigger projects there. I'll let Luke touch on the street repaving. In the top right corner, you see a couple photos of construction of a cinder block wall, essentially a structure that will have a couple of metal sign faces attached to it, right out by the road. It's actually a pretty busy road in front of the property there. So that has been built, and the sign faces have been ordered and will be installed here in the next few weeks. In the bottom right, we've got a photo that's showing locations for streetlight installs. So similar to what we've been doing in Los Robles, we'll be lighting up this community with solar street lighting. There are currently only a couple of streetlights towards the front entrance of the property, really no lighting in some of the back corners. So that'll be a nice effort that should go a long way for the residents there.
Yeah, so the same contractor that did the paving work for Los Robles in Q2 did our paving at South Rogers and Bloomington. You can see that picture in the upper left. Turned out great. He's just a great contractor, and we have a great relationship with him. And we wanted to do that work before and allow sufficient cure time before we started bringing in new homes. Since we kind of had a licensing issue there as well, that we were getting delayed on getting the license. And now we actually today, we just had the first home delivered to South Rogers from the Clayton Wakarusa plant, and another one coming on Friday, and we'll continue to receive homes there. It's a great market there. We've already had quite a bit of interest expressed in the new homes, so we should be able to sell them pretty quickly.
Next community here is Silver City, which, as was mentioned, is being redeveloped, and I think Luke can really speak to that, his plans.
Yeah, and I think Sam mentioned, you look at the numbers, Silver City's not looking real great right now, because we do have these redevelopment plans, and we don't want to allow in new residents. We're allowing people to leave, but not to enter. So it's going to be a complete redevelopment. We toyed around with the idea of kind of keeping a portion of the community open while we redevelop from the backside, but long story short, it's going to be much more efficient and work out much better if we just completely redevelop it all together in one phase. So there's quite a bit of story around getting the right type of home for this community. Again, this is a tiny home community, and we've with the idea of having homes that are around 400 square feet moved in. The layout that you see in this slide is for about 150 pads. We're kind of making some adjustments to that based on the actual homes that we'll be bringing in. And yeah, so on the home side and home delivery, we've talked with a lot of different suppliers, a lot of different tiny home manufacturers. We're not looking for the really high-end homes, but a good, solid, well-built, aesthetically pleasing, tiny home. And without, I guess, telling the full story or getting into all the details, what we kind of found out was that with the tiny home manufacturers, very few of them are set up to deliver large volumes in the time period that we would need them. We started talking with kind of a third party that would help us manage getting homes from several different suppliers, anywhere from say 5 to 9 different suppliers. And what we really ended up doing is having some discussions with Champion or Skyline, and talking with reps from some of their different plants, and we've now kind of entering in the final phase of negotiating with them to bring their park model homes or their versions of a tiny home into these communities. And we believe this will really kind of work out better. This is one of the largest manufactured home manufacturers in the United States, and they can deliver the volumes we need, although they will need to come from 2 or 3 of their plants, one in Lindsay, California, one down in Arizona, and possibly getting a third plant involved. They've got kind of 3 versions of this home that you see in the upper left available. We're going to have kind of a base model, a mid-range model, and a higher model, higher end model. pricing ranging anywhere, our purchase price for these homes, anywhere from $45,000 to $65,000, and dimensions of around 12 feet by 28 to 34 feet long, and some different kind of features and options that we'll have in those homes. Some will have lofts for a sleeping area, kind of up in a loft area. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going right now, and we're launching some additional market studies as well to help kind of inform exactly which homes and what quantities we bring in of each type of home. So that's an interesting and exciting project going on right now.
Awesome. Hey, Luke, we had a couple of questions that came in and on the chat while we were talking here.
Yeah,
one of them, Dan asked how we'll move existing residents, and I know we've had some conversations with our engineer on that and the county. And the idea there is to really coordinate that closely with the county. They're also, concerned. They don't want to displace folks, and so we will work with them to make sure that there's housing that each of them can transition to. Eventually once we're done, then they can also come back to the community, potentially, as long as they meet our screening criteria. So then David asks, does this materially change the business plan from the original assumptions for this development, good or bad? So yeah, a couple of things. We originally intended to develop kind of the undeveloped part of the property based on our initial projections. We didn't intend to redevelop the part where there were already people living there. So it meant two things. Number one, it meant we were only going to be able to add, and I'm trying to remember now, but it was somewhere in the range of about 30 new spaces. So going from basically 50 to 80. And whereas this new plan is pretty much going to put us, I know this one's 150, Luke, but I think we're backing off that a little bit, probably going to be more around 130, 125, 130. So it'll dramatically increase the number of residents. The downside is there is going to be this interruption in cash flow from the community as we displace the folks that are there.
Yeah, and we're working with two different local contractors. One of them, he's kind of our interface with the county, and it is a concern they have of how we transition out the existing residents. So we're very sensitive to that. We're working with our local contractors to be able to find a suitable housing alternative for them. And it is a tight-knit community, so we're trying to encourage, make it available for them to move together to a nearby community. So.
Okay. Well, the next slide here is focusing on Oakhill, which is in Lakeland, Florida. And we've got a big project moving forward there with renovation of the clubhouse on site. So we got a few CAD drawings on the right side of this slide. The uppermost shows the current layout of the building. So it's one big main community room with a kitchen on one end and kind of a couple of annex rooms on the other end. And then the other side of the building has a standalone utility room with an entrance from outside, and then a standalone office that also has a separate entrance. The image below that in the bottom right corner shows the renovated floor plan. So we've basically knocked the wall down between the utility room and the office and put a door from the main community room into there, and we're moving the kitchen into that space. So that'll host the kitchen and then some storage space, and we'll open up the main community room a bit more. We'll be putting in some sliding doors on the back wall and building basically a patio with some picnic tables and a few barbecue pits, and we'll be building a roof over that, so it'll be covered. And then the office is going to get moved over into one of the rooms on the right. So kind of be an office and community space all in one. The community manager there is really excited about this layout and how it'll be received by the residents. So we've been planning that for some time. We're currently soliciting bids for its construction. On the left side here, we've got some images from a project that wrapped up in Q3. This was a pilot for us, and we were excited to try it out at Oakhill. This is the installation of smart water meters on, I think it was just about 70 homes. And we've got, I think, just about 10 vacant lots there that we're prepared to install these on as well. So these meters send readings 3 times a day, once every 8 hours, to the box you see in the bottom center with the red wall behind it. That's a collector that's in the office, and the picture above that shows one of 2 repeaters that were installed throughout the community just to make sure the signal coming from all the meters is strong enough to get there. Anyway, this is going to essentially automate a process that involved our property manager walking the property once a month and manually reading all these meters. It's going to save significant time. The system's been commissioned and it's been working really well, so we're very happy with how it's worked out, and we're actually starting now installation at a second property with these.
Yeah, just to add to that, a little bit of backstory on the sub-metering. We've used another company for a couple of our very first fund, one community in Phoenix City, Alabama, another in near Wichita, Kansas. And long story short on that, we were not very happy with the product or the service that came out of that. Had several issues with that company, and we kind of got turned off towards smart metering, but looking into it again, and really Fletcher spearheaded this, found another company, and really ended up being at least so far, I think we're finding it's been a much better alternative for doing smart metering and less expensive, and so yeah, I think you'll see us likely rolling this out at many of our other communities within Saratoga Group.
Perfect. Luke, Kevin asks, can the smart meters be used to identify leaks or water running 24/7 for the residents?
Yeah. Fletcher, do you want to speak to that one? I know the sub-meter solutions don't have all the bells and whistles that some of the other companies have, but do you recall exactly what the nature of the kind of the alarming or?
Yeah. So the way it's set up right now, we get an email, a few of us, once every 24 hours that's got the readings for the last day. That will notify us if any of the meters have gone offline, which is obviously an important thing to know. So we would know that within 24 hours at the longest and be able to work with the on-site staff to deal with that sort of an issue. We're also able to set thresholds for the readings that would then basically flag a potential issue. So if there are, uncommonly or commonly higher problematic numbers in the readings, we will be notified and can look into that. So it's really a pretty great system all the way around.
Great. And I know there's a couple other questions that have come up on previous slides. We will get to all the questions. We'll just kind of keep moving at this point, and then we'll come back to those questions.
Okay, this next slide is focused on Ashland and Iowa in Daytona, Florida. So a few different projects we've been working on there this last quarter. The 2 images in the top right corner you see are some community maps we've developed. We've been developing these for quite a few of the properties. Actually, a good bit of detail work has gone into those. They'll be used in a couple different capacities, but one of them is that we'll be printing them about 4 foot by 4 foot in color and installing them near the entrance to the community. So should help, obviously, for folks finding their way, and add a bit of a sense of place and some branding right at the entrance. The two images in the bottom right show kind of our plans for installing some solar streetlights here as well. Both of these communities do have street lighting. Ashland's pretty well lit, most of it is anyway, and Iowa's very small but has a few streetlights in there. So we've identified, I think, 3 locations in Ashland and 2 in Iowa where we will be installing solar streetlights. Finally, on the left half of the screen, this is an image of part of the survey of the property, kind of the back or east side of it along Carswell Street. There's about a 300-foot section there where the property boundary is right up against the street, and there are 3 entrances to the community back there. The only other entrance is the main entrance on the west side of the property. So for a number of reasons, one of them being some security issues we've had there, we are going to be fencing off that property boundary, probably with a 6-foot wooden security fence similar to the one you see in this image here. And we've been working with the fire department in Holly Hill. We'll be installing emergency access gates at each of those 3 entrances, but they'll be there essentially just for emergency services. So the property manager there is very excited about this and thinks it's going to go a long way as far as addressing some security issues there and improving the way it looks along Carswell Street there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and maybe a couple things to add there. Again, as an OZ fund, a lot of these communities are in kind of maybe rough areas, and crime and security is often an issue. We didn't quite expect that in Daytona as much in a 55 and older community, but even there we've had some crime issues. But I can't speak highly enough of our manager there, Shelley. She has taken a lot of these issues head on. She's formed a neighborhood watch, or a community watch, and you know, we talk a lot about the solar lighting. You know, one of the primary purposes of that is to improve the security. We find that with the solar lighting, it really goes a long way to preventing and kind of deterring crime. And Shelley, well, I mentioned her in part because she's a great manager. She's very ambitious, and we recently promoted her to a district manager position, and she's got some more oversight that includes, well, she manages our other community in Oakhill, and then also has oversight on our new acquisition in Albany. So she's really been a huge help to the company and providing a lot of value.
All right, so this next slide is focused on Westwood in Greenville, North Carolina. Do you want to take the lead on this one, Luke?
Sure. I kind of liken Westwood to Los Robles. It's a large community. There's a lot of work and a lot of opportunity there. Let's see, the picture you're seeing in the upper right of the roads there. The roads, when we purchase a community, are still are in fairly poor condition. We did some kind of intermediate work where we milled out a lot of the bad areas and brought in some base material, which we know we're going to need anyway when we do the final repave. Let's see, we just finished up survey as well for this community, and are now, we just signed an engineering contract with a really good engineering company there in Greenville. And we have a great paving contractor lined up to do a lot of the work. They did some work for us already at a couple other communities there in Greenville. And we'll, you know, and that work will include not just the redoing all the roads, but also improving the drainage and in some cases replacing culverts and such. The picture there on the left is of some of the new homes, the new Clayton homes out of the Maynardville plant that have been moved into Westwood. And about half of those homes went to Fairview, the other half went to Westwood. And trying to remember to date, I think maybe we've already sold, I want to say 5 or 6 of those homes out of the 15. And we are currently finalizing another order of about, I think about 26 homes. Some of those going to other communities that we have in Greenville, but about half of those will go into Westwood and Fairview as well. Actually, a little bit more than half. So things are going really well in Greenville. Again, we have a great team there as well. Our manager is really top notch as well.
Yeah, Luke, if I could comment on the road work because typically we do the new asphalt a little sooner, right? I mean, as you can see from the photos and as Luke shared, the asphalt there is in very poor condition. In fact, it was just 2 months ago that the Postal Service sent us a letter and said, we will not be delivering mail any longer to your community because of the mail trucks and what's happening to them. The reason that we're taking a little bit longer, of course, we remedied that situation. That's part of why we did this intermediate step of bringing in the base material, but we also didn't want to re-asphalt or repave the park without addressing some of the drainage issues that are there. And so that's why we're doing the survey. That's why we need the engineering, is to make sure we're getting good drainage and we don't have the same problem in a few years because there's standing water all the time on our new asphalt.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this next slide focuses on another one of the Greenville properties, Fairview MHC. As Luke mentioned, there were a number of new Clayton homes recently brought into this community as well and set up. That's what you're seeing on the left half of the screen. On the right half of the screen, we've got some images related to landmark signage. So we're putting in a new 8-foot cinder block wall and then a steel sign. We were initially planning to put it just out in front of the office. It looks like now we're going to be moving it down the road a little ways, but it's a very high visibility location, again, along a busy road, and that signage hopefully will go a long way for that community. I believe the next slide also focuses on Fairview.
Perfect.
So one of the bigger projects there, we're also going through an office remodel. The picture you see in the top right is the current office building. It's in pretty good shape overall, but could definitely use some work. So what we've got on the left side are 2 CAD drawings. The one on the top shows the current floor plan inside the building. There's kind of a lot going on. And the one on the bottom left shows the revised layout. So we're knocking out a few walls, enlarging one of the offices, enlarging the lobby space, and creating access to the restroom, which is in the back corner of the building from the main hallway, so that you wouldn't have to go through the storage area to get there. This has been we've been planning for a number of months, and work has begun actually just the last few weeks on this. So we have a manager and assistant manager there who I think long-term are planning to work out of this building once it's been completed, and they're definitely excited about what it'll look like once all these renovations have been completed. Along the same lines, just outside of that building, behind it, we're going to be installing a playground. So a couple survey drawings of that in the bottom right corner. Do you want to speak to that at all, Luke?
Well, it's the process is taking a little bit longer than it typically takes at other locations because city regulations require a full survey of where we plan to put the playground and everything. But that has just recently wrapped up, and we should be getting that playground installed within the next couple months. And just back on the office building, in addition to all those kind of interior and exterior remodels, we're putting in a new septic system as well. So, and back on kind of the home sales, most of our home sales of this order of 15 homes that went to Fairview and Westwood, most of the homes that have sold have actually been in Westwood. And, I think a large part has to do with the fact that we really only have a presence in Westwood right now, since our staff can't really work out of the office there in Fairview. So I think once we finish this remodel, I think we'll see a lot more movement in home sales at Fairview as well.
All right, and this last slide here is highlighting the most recent property added to this portfolio, Oak Grove Estates in Albany, Georgia. It just came online here a week or so ago. I think one of the first things we'll be working on there is the roads, and these two images in the middle show recently completed road work at Hillcrest Plaza outside of Atlanta, Georgia. We're planning to work with the same contractor to repave the roads in Oak Grove Estates here pretty quickly. Do you want to touch on that, Luke?
Yeah, we were happy with the work they did in Marietta, and they'd actually done some work for us before in Phoenix City as well. In general, when we find a good contract, we like to keep them and keep using them for other communities. So they've given us a bid for the road work there in Albany, and we have signed a contract with them. They should be starting, I believe, Monday or Tuesday of next week on the road work there. And then I'll mention real briefly, it was kind of interesting. Speaking of roads, when we were there in person, maybe 2.5 months ago, we met one of the contractors that gave us a bid on road work, mentioned to me that he owns the property next door, and we'll be developing that into a mobile home community as well, which is interesting on one level, since you don't see a lot of new mobile home community developments. Most cities won't approve those. Long story short, we've been in discussion with him about, he wants to build the community, he doesn't want to operate it, and we are looking at an opportunity to purchase that upon completion of development, and if we did that, that would become part of this next OZ fund that we're rolling out. So that would be about, we've worked with him to actually kind of improve the layout of that community, and I think originally he had about 91 or 93 pads planned, but the latest and final kind of approved version by the city, I think, had him about 112 lots there. So it could really be a lot of synergy there to have, one team, one maintenance team, common facilities between those two communities. So a potential opportunity there I thought I'd mention.
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of mention on Oak Grove Estates. So it's actually, the photo you're seeing on the left-hand side, that is Oak Grove Estates. It has about 170 spaces in it. That's kind of the largest community in the portfolio, but we actually purchased 5 communities, a total of 261 lots, as discussed in Albany, Georgia, and we're pretty excited about that. It's kind of it's a nice addition to the portfolio because it's 93% occupied already with rents that are way below market. So there's, and of course I don't want to say of course, but the previous owner was not running it very efficiently. So there were a lot of staff, a lot of equipment, a lot of kind of unnecessary things that we're cleaning up and going to be able to, have this portfolio generating significant cash flow as we improve it. So it's a little different than most of the assets in our portfolio, where across most of those assets are about 55% occupied, lots of infill. Here it's more improving what's there, bringing the rents up to market, and then adding a playground, doing the roads, and then adding a few homes as well, turning over some of the really old inventory as we go as well. Little more of an iterative approach on this part of the portfolio. Okay. So this slide is showing our substantial improvement calculations. And basically, everybody, I think, understands that as an opportunity zone fund, each of the assets in the fund needs to qualify. And one of the ways they qualify is they're actually located in an opportunity zone. The second way is that we have to double the basis. And so we're just kind of giving you the high level view of, you know, if you look at kind of the column in the middle, these are the improvements in monetary numbers of what were added in Q3, and then the column just to the right of that showing the total improvements. You can see that we haven't yet met our 2x test, which is necessary in the first 30 months on any of the properties except for the one in Rockdale, Texas, Los Robles. We still have a lot of improvement to go there in terms of building the clubhouse that was described and the soccer field and so forth. So we'll be well beyond the 2x there by the time we're done. But we're on our path for most of these. Ashland in Iowa, there's quite a ways to go there, as well as our Silver City property in Vegas, and that. So in Ashland in Iowa, as was kind of talked about, we're we've done some roads. We're putting in the gating, we're putting in the lighting, and then really the next thing is bringing in the new homes to fill up those vacant spaces that are there. Luke, what's the status? I know we've been. Yeah. Can you give us a status on that order?
Yeah, I guess I forgot to mention that. We actually just received the contract, the purchase order contract today. We're starting with 5 homes going to Ashland, and so yeah, we just need to wire them the money, and those homes are. Let's see, I think delivery time we're talking about January to February for those 5 homes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and then the other communities, we still have a ways to go with Oakhill. One thing we didn't talk about on this call, we did talk about last quarter, is development of additional. It's actually zoned for another. I'm going to make up numbers here because I can't remember. Is it 12 or 16? 12 spaces at Oakhill. Maybe we could give a brief update on that progress.
Yeah, not a whole lot to report there. We still need to present our plan to the city and kind of move that forward. But no, not a whole lot to report on that. But yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to get 12 lots out of that kind of, what is it, the lower southwest corner of the community when we develop it out, but somewhere between 8 and 12.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. So I think the main thing to know is that we certainly are tracking this and looking at it closely to make sure that we meet our timelines for these improvements, and we don't see any issues. I mean, the one that I would say there's going to be plenty of basis addition, but the timeline could be a little longer, is the property in Vegas, right? So we're definitely pushing that along. I know there's plans to meet with the home suppliers and also with the county. I think the county is just in the next few weeks here, Luke. Is that right?
Yeah, we don't have a fixed meeting date, but yeah, by the end of the month, we're hoping to be able to meet with them virtually. And then do a site meeting with, among other people, it'll actually be reps from the 2 plants that'll be providing homes in January.
Okay.
So just a couple little things to add. The 30 months or 30 months, including the month that you purchase the property, starts at acquisition of each individual property. So we have properties that have been purchased throughout 19 and 20, so all the meters are not going to run out at the same time, so to speak. And additionally, to our benefit, if we've experienced any delays due to COVID with permitting, et cetera, through county agencies, federal agencies, whatever, there has been a 9-month extension on that 30-month timeline. So not that we wouldn't have hit it anyway, but in case we needed a little bit of extra time, it is available. So we're well within all those parameters. And as Sam mentioned, one thing that will be very beneficial, the homes with vacant lots that we get to add physical homes to, those homes count as well. It's just not all infrastructure toward those improvements. So that's all good news for us.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Becky. Okay, so let's see. We had well, actually, I think that's our last slide. Yeah. Next one is questions, and I know a few questions came in over the chat here as we held the meeting. I would say if anybody has other questions, please feel free to add those to the chat also, and then we'll try to address any of them. Kevin, at this point, I'm actually kind of wondering, do you want to go ahead and ask those questions, or and I didn't ask you beforehand, are there other questions that maybe you had prior to the call that we should address as well? Let's see, Kevin, you're actually muted, it appears.
You're not going to lip read?
I'm actually pretty good at that, but no, I don't, not in front of this many people.
Okay. Well, first off, certainly thank you so much for all of you taking this time and enlightening us and sharing this. And it's just great news for these communities that are going to be in a better place. I have 4 questions that were sent prior. I can just kind of go through them briefly, but certainly want to make sure we get to everyone. The first question is, will you be sharing a property level income statement, cash flow statement, and balance sheet each quarter?
We haven't discussed that at all. I don't see a problem with doing that.
Oh, we could.
Yeah. That's an easy report for us to generate from our management system. And so I think probably what we would do is just set up maybe a Dropbox that everybody, that's an investor can access, or maybe, no, I guess we'll put it in the investor portal, and that's something we can do.
We could do that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you. The next question I have, well, I think one of the questions you pretty much answered, talked about the substantial improvements requirement and the plan to ensure that it's met and then they're on track. So it sounds like, based on what Becky said, with the 30 months and the extra 9 and houses count, that you pretty much feel pretty confident that all that is on track and to be met by the deadline. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Like I said, the one that we feel like we have a little less control over is the kind of redevelopment plan in Las Vegas. But at the same time, the full build out isn't going to be necessary to get the doubling of the basis. I mean, we start breaking ground and just not too long after that, we're going to kind of meet those basis improvement requirements on that park. So even there, yeah, we feel confident that we'll be able to do it in that amount of time.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then someone asked, based on the net operating incomes noted in the quarterly report, what would have been the return to investors if Q3 if they've been paid?
That's a good question, because it's based on the operating cash flow, right? So kind of after debt service. Mm-hmm. I don't have that answer off the top of my head, but we can tell you what. We'll look at that and then we'll send out an email, kind of like a post call email with that information.
Wonderful. And then the last question I got, which I think somebody also put in chat there, is what is the latest estimate for when payments will begin to the investors?
Perfect. Yeah, and I saw we had another chat question came up with that came up with the same question. So we are still planning on after Q1 2021. So that would be basically April of 2021, being able to start the distributions.
Wonderful. Well, that was the questions that was sent to me, and I think you had a couple in the chat, and you probably can. I know you covered a lot of them as we went through there. I'm not sure if the one from Pat was answered.
Yeah. So perfect. Yeah, we'll go through these, the ones we weren't able to address yet. Brenda asked regarding the COVID impact on Vegas, and why would we continue to go through with that renovation or redevelopment there. I think there was another question about the same thing. Yeah. So we certainly started going down the path kind of right before COVID hit. However, there is still a dramatic need for affordable housing in Vegas. Nothing about that has changed. In fact, it's not just Vegas, but other places across the country. We've seen the same thing, where we've seen more demand in our communities across our portfolio since COVID hit, rather than the other way around. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, people in a downturn, in a recession, sometimes have to basically trade down in terms of housing and lots of other things in their lives. And manufactured housing is really about as affordable as it gets. So it's not just us. I mean, that's really across the industry. So yeah, we feel that this development in Vegas, there is a lot of demand. We're finishing up, or we're getting our marketing study, third-party marketing study started to kind of substantiate all that, and we'll be happy to share that information with the group as well as soon as we've got that back. But again, from everything we have, all the information we have, still very strong demand for affordable housing in Vegas. Let's see, there was another question. Yeah, there is a mistake in one of those charts there, and I need to look at that and see which number's wrong, basically, because I can't remember if it was Pat that pointed it out. The increase in the NOI relative to the actual Q3 NOI, those numbers don't match. So, and that's specifically for the Oakhill community. So when we send out the post update, we'll give you clarification on that information as well. Looks like there's another question that came in. Okay, I'm not sure I understand this. Do you know of any adverse regulations or bills in Saratoga?
They added a little more to it regarding the property states. So anything related to the fund.
Oh, I see. So I think, Brenda, if I'm understanding the question, okay. So if I'm understanding that first question, I think that's regarding any regulations on a statewide basis for any of the states that we have Fund 4 properties in that may have adverse effect. For example, North Carolina, we've been kind of in and out of, I would consider it adverse in terms of being able to evict, kind of eviction moratoriums that are, across the United States are in place in some states. Other states they've been lifted. Other states so yes, I mean there are those sorts of things that are happening in each state really. The one in North Carolina was lifted recently, and that's providing leverage for us to be able to, evict folks that for non-COVID reasons haven't been making their payments, that sort of thing. So that's, I think that's the question there. If not, okay, I see a yes. Okay, perfect. So yeah, it is very state specific. Of course, there is a national quote unquote moratorium from the CDC actually, which was surprising, I think, to everybody when that came out. We found very little impact from that eviction moratorium because it specifically puts the burden of proof on the resident to document why COVID impacted their earning ability and all that sort of stuff. So we really haven't seen anything relative to that. Okay, so then Cam asked kind of multiple questions here regarding the fund cash flow. So first of all, it is positive. I just don't have we don't have those numbers in front of us, but we will send those. And then what are the levers to get to positive cash flow or increase positive cash flow? Yeah, so no, those are good questions. It is certainly park by park or community by community specific, but let's take one example, or maybe a couple examples. So the portfolio that we purchased recently in Albany, Georgia, our lot rent across that portfolio is I'm trying to remember now, but anyway, it's less than $130 a month. And that portfolio is mostly full of park-owned homes. And this is something I've described this maybe in a previous investor call, but what we've done there and what we always do when we take over communities like this is initially we're just going to change the allocation with a new lease to the resident, so that instead of the lot rent being $130 and the home rent $300, we flip it and we go, the lot rent's $300 and the home rent's $130. And what that does is we start selling off the homes and through a lease option or maybe cash sale or whatever, then we've already reestablished a lot rent that is, if not at market, a lot closer to market. The other thing is we're doing, every community in our portfolio always has an annual rent raise, depending on how far below market. And Steve or Josh, I don't know if you guys remember offhand the rent raise that we have for Albany.
Don't.
Yeah, Josh, do you remember offhand?
I don't either.
Yeah, I think it's over 50. It's over $50 per lot, and we've got 240 occupied. So anyway, so you can see right there, that's a dramatic increase in and of course that's all going to be net income or cash flow there. But the other things that are happening is, we're now bringing in new homes. As we occupy those, we certainly see improvements in cash flow from that. And so those are the main, hopefully that kind of addresses that question regarding improving cash flow. The next part of Cam's question, also, do you have the capital available today to handle the coming CapEx, or will you be depending on operating cash flow? Yeah, good question. So we definitely intentionally raised enough capital so that we have all the capital we need up front for doing these improvements in Fund 4. The one exception, quote unquote, is Silver City, because that was not our original intention, was to do that full development. So at the time we're ready to do construction there, we will evaluate it. We may need to get a construction loan to do that. We prefer to do it without doing a construction loan. And let me kind of address that a little more succinctly. So, for example, some of these communities, I'd say South Rogers, Los Robles, and Rockdale, Texas, within the next 12 to 18 months, we may have those, or should certainly South Rogers, have them full enough that we could go get a nice long-term non-recourse loan and be able to, at that point, if we decide, hey, it'd be better to use those funds instead of distributing them to the investors, maybe instead of doing a construction loan in Vegas, we would use those funds to maybe fund that or something like that. So that would be the one that wasn't initially included in our projection. Certainly, the Vegas development is going to be more expensive than originally projected because of the increased occupancy and that sort of thing. Becky, I'm going to let you take this question. Are the costs of new homes operating expenses or capital expenses?
Of purchasing the new home?
I'm assuming that's yes.
No, we capitalize certainly the new homes for a number of reasons. They're an asset that is depreciated over a longer period of time, and also we want them included in our improvement basis. So definitely they're capitalized. And the improvements to get them, like if we put a deck on, or the electricity hookups, or if we have to lay a driveway or a concrete pad or any of those things around the new home, those all count. So they're all capitalized.
Perfect. Okay, let's see. Anyone else with questions? If you can put those in the chat, I think. Otherwise, Kevin, if you don't have anything, we'd wish everybody a happy Veterans Day. When we scheduled this originally, I don't know how Veterans Day ended up on a Wednesday, to be honest. It kind of took us all by surprise here. And we love our veterans. Got a dad and a brother that both have served or are serving. So are there any other questions?
One more that slipped in from Cam there.
Okay. It'd be great to see a pro forma at some point now that you have all the properties purchased. I'm thinking it would be current NOI, projected NOI increases from, okay, perfect. Cam, I think that's a good request. We certainly have our original pro formas, and we can update those with kind of our latest information on a per property basis, and we'll make that available to everybody as well.
Well, again, we really appreciate your time, everyone's time, your whole group there, and all the information. It's been so helpful to give to all of us at once instead of having to try to piecemeal all the parts together, and appreciate you recording this so we can share it with some of the people that couldn't make it today. But just thank you for your transparency and the communications and everything so far. And we got a couple takeaways, like the reporting and things that we'll follow up on, and look forward to seeing that. So from all of us, we just want to again say thank you everyone for all the hard work that you're doing with all these communities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate everybody joining the call.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.